This is the Water Quality Association podcast.
The question I get asked the most, which is honestly the same question that I often ask my colleagues in the water space, is will the EPA drop regulation of PFOA and PFOS in drinking water? My short answer is I don't think so. But of course, I can't be sure. No one really knows how this is all going to play out.
That's WQA's Technical Affairs Director, Eric Yeggy, talking about his contaminant predictions for 2026. And welcome to the podcast from the Water Quality Association, the leading voice of the residential, commercial, and industrial water treatment community. I'm Wes Bleed. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a show. It's the magic of podcasting. And be sure to share the podcast with someone you know. In this episode, we talk with WQA Technical Affairs Director Eric Yeggy. He's back with us for one of the more popular and most informative podcasts of the year, our look ahead at top contaminant predictions for the water treatment industry. Eric recaps last year's predictions, what held true, what gained momentum, and what members should be watching for in 2026. We cover lead, PFAS, arsenic, disinfection, byproducts, and why standards development might matter more than you think. Plus, we'll have our WQA tip. It's all coming up on the Water Quality Association podcast. WQA Technical Affairs Director Eric Yeggy joins us now on the podcast, and this is one of the most popular podcasts we have each year, where we bring in Eric, sit him down in the studio, and we ask him to predict what are going to be the top contaminant concerns for our members and for the industry. And so, Eric, welcome. We appreciate you joining us. Let's begin with catching us up on what kind of year it's been for you and the technical affairs team at WQA.
It's been a very busy year with advocacy and education first. Brianna and I were invited to write. We'll contribute to numerous articles, including some publications like Better Homes and Gardens, AWWA's OptFlow Journal. I presented at numerous technical conferences, including the Private Well Conference, the National Environmental Health Association's annual conference, the National Association of Realtors. So it's been a fun year for advocacy and education. Last year, we talked about some of the challenges that were created by poorly written standards. And we've been working with standard development groups throughout the year to improve those standards. And that work is going to have to continue in 2026. Unfortunately, the process to change a consensus-based standards can take a very long time, which again stresses the importance of what we talked about last year. That it's important to do it correctly the first time. Standards developers have a big responsibility to make sure that the standards they publish don't overlap and conflict with existing national standards, that they're technically sound, that they're validated through multiple laboratories so that we can ensure the test methods provide repeatable results. And the standards need to be given a chance to mature and become widely used before they're made mandatory in the plumbing codes.
What I was going to say, if you could just back up for a second, for a new member or somebody who is listening to this and is not that well acquainted with our industry, give us a sense of what standards you're talking about and why these are so important.
Well, the standards we're talking about are, and I don't want to call out specific standard developers, but the standards issues that we're talking about are really when a standard is published that overlaps with existing standards, because that causes confusion with regulators and inspectors. They don't know which marks to look for or what certifications to look for. And it may end up causing duplicate testing, which then just raises the cost to the manufacturer, which is a cost that ends up being passed on to the end user. So it doesn't really benefit anybody to have these duplicate standards out there. Other than, I guess you could argue it does benefit the certification providers, which admittedly WQA is one of them, but we do not support duplication of standards.
And all right, so standards for products.
Standards for products. Yep. Standards that are used for product certifications. And there's also been just some bad tests that have been included in standards, that tests that really don't work at all and didn't work from the beginning. And those standards were not properly validated. So that wasn't caught when the standards were initially published. I was also going to mention that we do provide a lot of business reports to our members, and we've been busy adding and improving to the reports that we provide. Brianna Pozadik, the Technical Affairs Manager, really leads that effort for us. Brianna has been making numerous improvements to finesse the timing and the generation and presentation of those reports, but also a new type of valve has been added to the tank and valve report, which is one of the oldest reports that we do for the industry. It now is, with this new valve, more accurately tracking the softener market as well as whole house filtration. A new report called the Manufacturer's Confidence Report has been added, and Brianna and the Industry Research Committee continue to experiment with ways that all of this data can be compared, cross-correlated, and those results are shared with members in the cross-correlation report, which comes out quarterly. And of course, on top of all this, we're continuing to track and research and emerging water quality issues that might impact the industry. So it's been a very exciting year with lots of developments.
Well, Eric, it's that time of year, as we said at the outset of the show, where we hear your predictions for top contaminant concerns for the industry. Let's start with what you predicted last year and how accurate you were in those predictions.
So last year, one of the first things we talked about was that lead and PFAS would remain areas of prominent focus in the media and within public health circles. And definitely that has been the case. We have seen a lot of focus still on lead and PFAS. We also talked about there being a potential for a lot of concern with disinfection byproducts. And we have seen that those concerns are partly due to consolidation of small systems, which results in more water aging, more time for the disinfectants to react with other things in the water and form disinfection byproducts. But we've also seen new research into unregulated disinfection byproducts. And while there's still a lot we don't know about the unregulated disinfection byproducts, some of them, such as chloronitromide, which is an anion that can be formed when systems use chloramine, instead of chlorine to disinfect the water. That may end up being more dangerous than some of the disinfection byproducts which are currently regulated. So something that we'll still continue to track. I think there's a lot still developing on the disinfection byproduct front. I also predicted that arsenic would remain a concern, which is true. Arsenic is still a significant issue with water in the U.S. There was a study, though, that I want to kind of talk about related to arsenic if we have time. Is that okay? So there was a study published in October of 2025 that showed arsenic levels in public water supplies have significantly declined since the arsenic rule was implemented in 2001. That rule lowered the maximum contaminant level for arsenic from 50 to 10. And it was a very controversial rule at the time because the cost to public water systems to comply was potentially very high by some estimates and potentially unaffordable by small systems. So while arsenic is still a concern, especially for small systems and for many consumers who are in private wells, the study provides an important retroactive demonstration of the effectiveness of the arsenic rule. And it sets the stage now for future research which can quantify the health benefits which can be attributed to that 2001 rule. And this type of independent retroactive analysis is important because it helps us understand the effectiveness of EPA's regulatory actions. I'm sharing this because not only does it directly tie to the 2025 prediction about arsenic, but also to a future prediction that I want to discuss.
Okay, so what are you predicting for 2026?
The question I get asked the most, which is honestly the same question that I often ask my colleagues in the water space, is will the EPA drop regulation of PFOA and PFOS in drinking water? My short answer is I don't think so. But of course, I can't be sure. No one really knows how this is all going to play out. For those who may not be following this, there are ongoing lawsuits against the EPA. They're trying to push back against the proposed rules on regulating these chemicals in drinking water. And the EPA has signaled that they plan to step back on it a bit by dropping the proposed health index requirements for several PFAS chemicals. And even though they have stated that they continue to support the proposed MCLs for PFOA and PFOS, it makes people wonder if the proposal to regulate those two PFAS will also be dropped. There has been new research which shows that blood levels of PFOA and PFOS have significantly declined in the U.S. since those two chemicals were voluntarily phased out of production in 2015, I believe. And that sort of leads to the argument that if blood levels are already declining in the absence of drinking water regulations, why do we need to regulate these chemicals in drinking water? I don't find that argument very compelling for several reasons. First, a very similar graph has been produced showing the lead blood levels in the U.S. declined significantly once there was a mandate to switch over to unleaded gasoline. Therefore, why do we regulate lead in drinking water if the reduction of blood levels can largely be attributed to the introduction of unleaded gasoline? But there's been a number of drinking water crises related to lead in drinking water beyond just the Flint, Michigan crisis, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. And even though while this has been occurring, there's been this overall decline in lead blood levels, there are still significant populations impacted by lead in drinking water. And likewise, you could say the same thing about PFOA and PFOS. There's still significant populations who've been impacted by PFOA and PFOS in drinking water while there was this ongoing overall decline in blood levels. And so since there are these impacted populations, many of the states have already implemented rules to regulate PFOA and PFOS in drinking water, as well as other PFAS chemicals. Well, I think people in the water space would agree that more research is needed to fully understand the health impacts of PFAS. It's getting pretty hard to argue that there are no health impacts. And as that research continues and we gain a fuller understanding of the health impacts, what message could be delivered to those populations who have already been impacted or could potentially continue to be impacted, other than we do care about your health and we're going to continue looking out for you. So I think there's too much science behind the public health concerns associated with PFOA and PFOS to convince the EPA to completely drop their proposal. That could create such a backlash in public opinion that states would actually feel more compelled to regulate those chemicals in drinking water. And this isn't the first time, as we talked about with arsenic, that the EPA has been sued over proposed drinking water regulations. It's fairly common occurrence for this to happen. They were sued multiple times over the arsenic rule. This isn't their first rodeo. Yeah, so if the EPA does find that there are compelling arguments that they've underestimated how difficult it will be for some systems to comply, they have other options. For example, one of the simplest options would be to extend the compliance timeline so that systems have more time to plan, more time to build up resources. And another theory I've heard is that the Trump administration will somehow step in and force the EPA to drop this. That doesn't seem very likely to me. Paige O'Malley, who's our government affairs manager and my go-to expert on everything political, recently reminded me that it was the first Trump administration that initiated the plan to develop MCLs for PFOA and PFOS in the first place, and to pursue their designation as hazardous substances. So in short, I'm just not seeing any indication that the EPA is going to drop their proposal to regulate PFOA and PFOS in drinking water. So sorry for taking up so much time to explore the PFAS question there, Wes, but it is a question that seems to be on everyone's mind, and the outcome will have a significant impact on our members. Yes, putting PFAS aside, there's a couple other topics that I would like to put on everybody's radar for 2026. First of all, let's talk about lead. There's been, again, a lot of regulatory focus on improving the lead and copper rule. And one of those improvements is that if a consumer is on a lead service line or a galvanized line that potentially contains lead, or a service line that is of unknown material, and that service line is disturbed, then the public water supply has to provide the homeowner with a certified lead filter and a number of replacement cartridges to protect the people that live in the home from potential lead spikes that might occur while that line is being disturbed. And the key here that I think our members need to pay attention to, especially in your service area, did I lose you, or everything okay? Yep. The key here that I think our members need to pay attention to, especially in your service area, is how are the local public water supplies and the state primacy agency interpreting the word disturbance. The EPA has made it clear that if you cut a service line, that's a disturbance. But there's many other things that could disturb a lead service line in a way that causes lead sediment that's built up in that line to be mobilized and then to create high levels of lead in the drinking water in the home. So I think that's something that people need to pay attention to in their service area. How is that going to be interpreted by local agencies? Yeah. And then another topic that I would like to put on people's radar is lithium. Brianna and I have been seeing a lot of attention put on lithium as we attend technical conferences in the water space this year, a lot more than I expected to see. So I don't know where that's headed. I don't know if lithium's going to end up being regulated, but I think it's worthwhile for people to keep an eye on and maybe start thinking about, if you did have requests to remove lithium, how would you do it? What do you have in your product line that could remove lithium?
So of what you've just said, Eric, will there be anything that gains more attention than any of the others, do you think, just in terms of either media coverage or trade publications?
Well, one of the things I didn't mention actually might gain the most attention, which is AI, because I think companies are still learning about all the powerful ways that technology can be used. I also think companies should be paying attention to new research that might impact the water space. For example, materials research, sensor technology, new treatment technologies. I'll just mention one very small example, which is research that's been focused on cyclodextrin-based polymers. Many of our members have been tracking developments with the new cyclodextrin-based polymer media for PFAS. This media was developed under a federal research grant through the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. The project resulted in a new reusable PFAS media, but also a new test method for PFAS that lowers the cost of the PFAS test by a factor of approximately 3 to 5, depending upon which laboratory you were using before. So, and there's also been research right here at the University of Chicago that I'm aware of that's using a cyclodextrin-based polymer to develop a sensor for detecting PFAS in water at sub-parts per trillion levels. So a lot of potential new technology development. Ultimately, it's not necessarily about having the fanciest gadget or the greatest technology. The real innovation often comes into play when the companies can find a way to apply those technologies in a way that really improves the customer experience. So I think that's the area to keep an eye on, is how do you take all these great technologies and use them to really improve the customer experience?
And then that makes me wonder, how and or can WQA help our members be positioned to deal with these issues?
Well, when it comes to technical issues, it all starts with educating your people. Take advantage of WQA's education programs, our instructor-led classes, professional certification program. Members can also request technical support from the WQA Technical Affairs team. We can research topics for you, help you understand what's known and what's unknown. And of course, attend the WQA convention. At our convention, there's going to be technical training, there'll be business operations training, there'll be opportunities to exhibit your products, networking events. You'll be able to see any new innovations that are on display.
Right, and the convention coming up in April in Miami Beach, Florida. So go to wqa.org/convention for all the details and to learn how to get registered for that. But in particular, will some of these concerns be part of the education track at convention?
Our agenda is not out yet, but definitely there will be basic and advanced training topics. The volunteer groups will all be meeting to discuss specific issues which have come up. WQA's think tank is going to be meeting to discuss their new projects. We'll be discussing the latest results from the manufacturing confidence survey that I mentioned, which is going to give you insights into how CEOs and other industry leaders are feeling about the state of the water treatment industry and what they see the opportunities and challenges are in the industry. So a lot of good stuff there.
And you'll be there.
I'll be there.
At convention, right? You have to walk up and say hello to Eric and his team. Okay, Eric, any other thoughts or ideas about how WQA members can stay on top of these issues going forward in this coming year?
We will be doing webinars for members throughout the year, and members can also reach out to us anytime with questions or to find out about what resources we have to offer on any of these topics. You can email. The easiest way is probably to just email WQA@WQA.org, and that way you will reach somebody who will connect you with whatever the best resources and expertise are in the topic that you have questions on.
All right, WQA@WQA.org. It's kind of a general email, but it is watched and monitored, and then if it's a specific question for your department, it will get to you.
Yep, and you can also put, if you have a specific question for the Technical Affairs Department, you can put technical support request in the subject line, or people can also, if they just want to reach out to me directly, they can email me at eyegggy@wqa.org. But the WQA@WQA.org email is probably the best option if you want to just reach all of technical affairs, because that will put technical support request in the subject line, and that'll go both to Brianna and myself.
And I should have asked this earlier, but what new projects have you been involved in, and do you anticipate being involved in the coming months?
We have a new program that we have launched this year to update each article in the WQA knowledge base on a continuous basis. So that's been an exciting endeavor for us. The WQA think tank completed a collaborative project with Health Canada, which is a Canadian regulatory agency. Health Canada was reviewing their fluoride regulations, and the WQA think tank was invited to provide technical input that was relevant to their review. The think tank also completed a collaborative project with the National Resource Defense Council, and having a group of experts like this that are proficient at working on collaborative projects with external organizations and regulatory agencies really ties in with our strategic goal to establish WQA and our members as thought leaders in the water space. So definitely encourage people to, again, come to the WQA convention, take part in all of that.
Fantastic. Well, Eric, I really want to say again, thank you for doing this for us. We appreciate it. It's a great program to look forward to, and then to actually hear and see every January as we start the new year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wes.
And now our WQA tip. Did you know that you can book your hotel room for the upcoming WQA 2026 WQA Convention and Expo in Miami Beach? Now, registration will open at a later date, but hotel booking can be performed online now by going to WQA.org/convention. You Convention dates April 28th through the 30th, 2026. Again, it's in Miami Beach, Florida. We look forward to seeing you there. Learn more at wqa.org/convention. Thanks for joining us for the Water Quality Association podcast. Learn more about water and water filtration at our consumer website, betterwatertoday.org. And learn more about professional certification, the Gold Seal Product Certification Program, and how you can become a member at WQA.org.